It's interesting, I've sang this song hundreds of times. And sometimes when you sing songs, they lose power. Maybe they become stale. But as I was reminded this week as we move into this new series called Anchor, there's a beautiful analogy in this song. And it just reminded me of how good God actually is. And it talks about Jesus being the wind in our sail, yet the anchor in the waves. And one of the reasons it's important for a ship or a boat to have an anchor is so that it can ride out the storms that may come, or even if it's in a safe harbor, that it might not ride out and be off course or to be drifted astray. And much like these ships, our souls need anchors. And that anchor for us is Jesus. And so no matter what storms may come in life, no matter if we're even in a safe season of life, there is an opportunity for our lives to be ruined or to be set off course. My prayer today as we sing this song, you'd be reminded of the anchor that we have in Jesus. So Lord, as we sing this song today, would you come and just remind us of how good you are to us? And that, Father, whatever may come, any season of life, God, that you truly are the anchor for our soul. Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I hide, the fountain I drink from, always my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life, always my song. 'Cause you are good, you're good, oh, you are good, you're good, oh. Let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves, always my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days, always my song. 'Cause you are good, you're good, oh, you are good, you're good, oh, you are good, you're good, oh, you are good, you're good, oh. You're never gonna let me down. 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 'Cause you are good, you're good, oh, you
Anchors. Every single boat out here has one. We were just singing about anchors. Matt was talking about anchors and anchors that we need in our life to hold us through every season. And if you think about anchors, really, they only have one purpose, and that's to hold steady, even when from things like gentle currents or rising and lowering tides to bigger things like storms and waves and wind, to hold fast so that these boats don't get washed up against the rocks and get big holes and gashes in the holes and all broken and damaged and ultimately sometimes even sink. And if you think of our lives like these boats, one of the things we face is storms. We know that this life is full of tumultuous, crazy storms. Everything from gentle currents that cause us to drift sometimes a little off course. And sometimes there's raging winds and storms and waves that feel like they're going to crash over us and cause us to get washed up on the rocks. Sometimes our lives feel like they're going to get holes and damaged. And even externally right now, there's storms that are raging. There's natural disasters and fires. There's COVID and pandemics globally. Not only that, the social and the political and the economic climate that we're facing in this world just creates so much disunity and hatred and oftentimes even violence, distance. But even internally, there's storms that we face. There's fears, there's lies, there's doubts, anxiety that tends to steal our hope and our joy. There's so many influences and opinions that are coming our way, telling us how to think and what to do in this life. And all those things can cause us to drift. They can cause our hearts to wander, our minds to wander, and ultimately even threaten to take our lives and wash them up against the rocks. But what's going to anchor us? What's going to hold us steady in an unsteady world? Where are we going to find the wisdom that we need to navigate the uncharted, tumultuous water that we face, not just in this season, but over the course of a lifetime? Well, in the Bible, there's this book called Proverbs, and it's a collection of short truths that's memorable, collected by Solomon. The Bible tells us was the wisest man that ever lived. And Proverbs chapter 2 gives us this answer. First 6 verses says, "My child, listen to what I say and treasure my commands. Tune your ears to wisdom and concentrate on understanding. Cry out for insight and ask for understanding. Search for them as you would for silver. Seek them like hidden treasures. Then you will understand what it means to fear the Lord, and you will gain knowledge of God, for the Lord grants wisdom." What's going to anchor us and hold us steady in an unsteady world? Where are we going to find the wisdom we need to navigate this life? Anchored people listen for God's voice. Anchored people listen for God's voice above the noise of the world to receive the wisdom that he promises, to hold us steady. In the noise that comes our way and the variety of opinions, we can trust and believe that his word, that his voice will hold us steady, that will aim us towards hope and joy and life in the midst of pain and rising and lowering tides and blowing winds and waves. And there's 2 things that we see in this passage that he points out for us to receive this wisdom. The first one is there's a sense of active listening. An active listening, not a passive listening. He says, listen to what I say, tune your ears to my word, to my voice. And we understand there's constantly noise that's coming and going, even as we sit out in a place as peaceful as this. There's constantly noise and clatter that just happens all around us. And it's not about sound waves coming in and out. What he's inviting us to do is to choose to tune our hearts and our ears and our minds to God, to his voice above all the noise. The Hebrews, the Israelites, they had this word called Shema, and it meant that they would listen to focus their attention to the point of action. It meant that they were going to hear so that they could do something about it, that it would change their life as a result. And so in this world of noise and confusion and clutter, who are you listening to? And not just who are you listening to, how are you listening today? Are you listening to critique? Are you listening to comment or just to make your point as soon as someone's done? Or are you listening to God's voice? Oftentimes we can listen to God in that same way. We can listen to God, but we can listen to try and prove him wrong. We can listen to try and show him how he's failed. We can listen to show him all the different ways that it's not going to work. Or we listen to learn. Or we listen with the spirit of humility to receive the wisdom that he has for us. And it's interesting, we have the ability to listen to a distinct voice in the midst of all the noise. One of the ways we get to see this, one of the ways I've seen this was my boys actually. They're athletes, they play football. And it's interesting because I would coach them for some seasons. And as they got into high school, you'd be in these stadiums and you're down on this field and there's a band playing and there's cheerleaders cheering and there's stands going crazy and there's referees blowing whistles and there's music playing and there's so much noise, opposing coaches and sidelines yelling and screaming. And they're in the middle of all that, trying to focus, trying to do their jobs, trying to stay the course and hold steady and do what they're called to do. But it was interesting because as they're out there in the midst of all that noise, all of a sudden their coach would yell their name. And I could see their head turn and they would get instruction and they would nod or they'd respond and give a thumbs up and they would get back to what they needed to do. They were tuning their ears to the voice that mattered most in that moment. And that's what he's saying here. First thing is active listening. If you want to hear God, he is speaking, but we have to tune our ears to hear him well. The second thing we see is there's this passionate pursuit. He says, search for me, seek my wisdom and understanding above all else. And one of the things we know is that this is a process over time, over a lifetime, but we understand what it means to passionately pursue. Not too far from where we're sitting right now, I remember that my wife, when we were dating, she was getting her master's at Long Beach State, and she would drive down Pacific Coast Highway back to a place she lived with a bunch of her friends. And I remember late at night, I knew her schedule, I knew her routine, and sometimes I would come and I would just sit in a parking lot overlooking the corner where I knew she would turn to go towards her house. And I would wait to see her car turn. And then I would just call her and say, hey, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I'm on my way home from school. And I'm like, oh, that's great. And we'd catch up a little bit. And then I'd say, would you want to grab coffee? And she goes, well, where are you? And I said, oh, I'm just wrapping up with some friends. And I'd been waiting there for hours just to see her car turn, to pursue her, to have coffee, to spend time with her so we could cultivate and nurture this relationship. And that's the invitation here. Actively listen to God's voice above all the noise, but passionately pursue him. Pursue his word, pursue his truth, pursue his spirit so that we can walk in everything he's calling us to. So who are you listening to? What's the primary voice that's speaking to you in your life? And importantly, also, who are you passionately pursuing? Or maybe what are you pursuing? Because those two things are critical for us to stay anchored in an unsteady world. And it's beautiful because he says, when we do these things, then you'll fear the Lord, you'll see him, you'll know him, and you'll receive his wisdom. And when he says fear the Lord, he's not saying that we have to be afraid of God in any way, shape, or form. The word there, the concept is the sense of reverence and awe and wonder. He says when you listen for his voice, when you hear the God that created everything that we sit in right now, the beauty of sunrises and sunsets, the gifts that we have to live and survive, the unique creations that all of us are, when you hear the God that created all of that, there's a sense of reverence and awe and wonder. And that's what it means to fear the Lord. And not only that, he says you can know him. We were just singing the song about how Jesus is the one who builds the bridge, is the anchor that holds us fast to God as our creator. And when we surrender to him, when we trust him with our whole life, when we choose to listen to his voice and passionately pursue him, he's like, you can know him and he will give you wisdom. That's the great gift. But we need to pay attention to the little words in the Bible as much as the big words. Because these gifts, it starts with then. And in some of the literal translations of this passage, we see that this actually begins with this little word, if. And so it would really read more like, well, if you listen to what I say and treasure my commands, and if you cry out for insight and ask for understanding, and if you search for them as you would silver, and if you seek them like hidden treasure, well, then you will fear the Lord and know him, see him, receive his wisdom. You see, God knows, and Solomon knew that we have so many choices, about where we're going to anchor our life. We get to choose. God gives us the choice, and we get to decide what's going to be our anchor in life. What are we going to trust to hold us steady in an unsteady world? And he's saying, if you choose to listen, if you choose to trust, if you choose to pursue, if you choose to seek and listen to my voice above all the others, then you're going to receive all the wisdom and hope and joy and love you could possibly imagine. And what are the other voices that are vying for our attention in this world? What are the other voices we could listen to? There's powerful voices in our lives. From the time we're born, we have the voices of our moms and our dads, of our coaches and our teachers. And as we grow older, the voices of our bosses, even our coworkers. And oftentimes these voices are powerful, and they can speak truth and beauty and encouragement, but they can also steal. They can also speak lies into us and saying, you're not valuable, you're not good enough, you should have never, I can't believe you did this. And those things stick with us. We have the voices of the present that we can choose, the voices of the media or even social media, the voices of our friends, either liking or disliking who we are or what we say or what we've done. And those voices can stick in our lives as well. And then, of course, there's our own voice. There's ourself. We tend to believe and agree with these lies over time, and they take root deep within us. We start to think we're not valuable, we're not worth anything, we're not good enough. And it puts us in this spiral of trying, and we start to drift off course, and sometimes even crash into the rocks, and we get big holes and gashes and scars deep within us. There's a lot of voices that we can listen to. But if we anchor to his voice, if we receive his wisdom, then we'll know him. We'll see him. We'll get to experience the wonder and the awe of being connected and hearing from the creator of everything we are. And it will hold us fast through life. Is there a storm you're facing today? Maybe it's a gentle current and you feel like you've drifted off course a bit, or maybe it feels like you are overwhelmed by the wind and the waves of this world. I would just ask, whose voice are you listening to? Are you listening to God's voice above all the noise of this world? Are you actively listening to him? Are you seeking and searching for his wisdom and understanding to anchor you and hold you steady in an unsteady world? And I just want to take a moment and practice this together. We get the opportunity to live this out, and actually we have been. Some of the darkest seasons in my life, I've cultivated tangible ways to hear God's voice, because lots of you may be saying, well, how would I do that? It seems so mysterious, and in many ways it is. And yet I found there's 3 very tangible ways to hear God. One of them is his word, which is what we've been doing. We've been unpacking what God has to say to us, even this morning together, and I believe that he's talking to you through that. Another way is through God's people. Many of us are connected in life groups, or lots of us have jumped into Rooted in this past week. Some of us are gonna lean into Alpha in the next couple weeks with some friends that have big questions. Those are all places and ways we get to hear God through his people. And finally, the last one is his Spirit. You see, when we choose to anchor our life to God through Jesus, he promises that he's going to give us the Holy Spirit, that he lives within us, and he will whisper and lead and guide and comfort, and he will give us wisdom. And so I just want to take a moment right now, even as we close. I want to take some time just to listen. Listen to God, listen for God. And I know for some of you, this is an exciting exercise. Maybe you journal every day. You take time to quiet your soul and your spirit. Maybe for some of you, this is brand new. But either way, I just want to invite you, wherever you are, just to take a deep breath. Maybe even close your eyes if it helps you just tune out the noise and distractions of the world and quiet your spirit. And maybe if you have a pen and some paper, grab that. But either way, I want you just to take a deep breath and rest. And I want you just to pray, God, what do you want to say to me today? And I want you to listen for his voice. If you have pen and paper, maybe you just write dear, and then whatever your name is, dear Kyle, and just fill in that blank, dear, and just wait on God, and then just write whatever comes to mind. And like I said, I know that sounds mysterious. Maybe for some of you, it sounds terrifying. But listen for God's voice. It'll be the voice of kindness and grace. It'll be the voice of love. It will not be the voice of judgment or condemnation. It won't sound like shame or guilt or fear. He will bring peace, and he will bring comfort, and he will bring wisdom. So let's just take a moment, quiet our spirit, and hear from God together.
God, I look to you, I won't be overwhelmed. Give me vision to see things like you do. God, I look to you, you're where my help comes from. Give me wisdom, you know just what to do, yeah. God, I look to you, I won't be overwhelmed. Give me vision to see things like you do. God, I look to you, you're where my help comes from. Give me wisdom, you know just what to do, yeah. And I will love you, Lord, my strength. And I will love you, Lord, my shield. And I will love you, Lord, my rock. Forever all my days, I will love you, God. Hallelujah, our God reigns. Hallelujah, our God reigns. Hallelujah, our God, you reign forever all my days. Hallelujah. Oh, hallelujah, our God reigns. Hallelujah, our God, you reign. Hallelujah, our God, you reign forever all my days. Hallelujah. And I will love, and I will love you, Lord, my strength. And I will love you, Lord, my shield. And I will love you, Lord, my rock. Forever all my days, I will love you, God.
That's our prayer. That's the prayer that I pray stays deep within your heart and soul as you walk through this week into a very noisy, very loud world. that you would continue to hear God's voice above all the noise, all the distraction, all the lies, and all the fear and opinions that this world throws your way. We talked about searching and seeking for God. I pray that this week you would invest in that you would dive deep into His Word to listen to what He wants to say to you. For some of you, you're trying to navigate this journey alone. And I just want to invite you to hear God through His people. There's great opportunities to do that. Like I said, many of you jumped into Rooted last week. We're launching Alpha this week. And join us in life groups as we get a way to walk through life together, to keep us anchored, to hold us steady in the midst of an unsteady world. And then finally, listen for His Spirit this week. Respond to what He's inviting you to. Don't be surprised when He invites you to love people in creative and unique ways, maybe people even within your own home, at your school or workplace or family, your neighbors. But just listen and respond to Him with all that you are. We want to walk with you in this journey. So feel free to join us on our website. We'd be happy to pray for you, pray over you, pray with you at any of our campuses or even online. And one of the ways we get to hear God and respond wholeheartedly is with our finances. It's a way of acknowledging that everything we have is His, everything He created, and He entrusts us to help steward that well. And so many of you guys are giving generously through this season. We get to bless our city and our community in tangible ways. And so I want to invite all you guys to listen to God. He will invite you into a story of generosity. And there's ways to easily give online, so just make sure you explore that on our webpage. And we look forward to seeing what God does in and through you in this church and community. God bless you guys. Have a great week.